The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the sodium lamps like veins pulsing with regret, and Dylan froze mid-stride when he saw the shadow leaning against his apartment door. Evan, after 12 years, looking like a ghost who'd clawed his way back from the grave. "You think you can just vanish and leave me picking up the pieces?" Evan's voice cracked like thunder over the Puget Sound. His blue eyes, those damn eyes that once promised forever, now sharpened with a betrayal that cut deeper than any knife. Dylan's heart slammed against his ribs, the weight of their hidden high school kisses crashing down like the storm outside. Because one truth he'd buried deeper than their love was this: the lie that ended it all wasn't his alone. Dylan slammed the door behind him, the echo reverberating through the narrow hallway of his capital. He'll walk up like a gunshot in a confessional. Water dripped from his coat onto the scuffed hardwood, pooling at his feet as he stared at Evan, who hadn't moved an inch. The man, his man once upon a time, stood there in a threadbare wool peacoat, collar turned up against the chill, his breath fogging the air between them. Seattle's November drizzle had turned Evan's blonde curls into a wild halo, but it was the scar above his left eyebrow, faint now but unmistakable, that twisted the knife in Dylan's gut. A remnant from that night senior year, the one they'd sworn never to speak of again. "Evan?" Dylan whispered, the name tasting like ash on his tongue. He hadn't uttered it aloud since graduation, not even in therapy, where he'd spun tales of amicable breakups to mask the hemorrhage. "How the hell did you find me?" Evan's laugh was bitter, devoid of the easy warmth that used to light up rainy afternoons in the back of Dylan's beat-up Chevy. "Google, man. You're not exactly living off the grid." Dylan Hargrove, freelance photographer, Seattle. Congrats on the TEDx talk last year, capturing the unseen, queer stories in the Pacific Northwest. Real poetic. He stepped forward, invading Dylan's space, the scent of wet cedar and old regrets wafting off him like a fog. "But you buried us so deep. I had to dig through your portfolio to find a single photo that screamed me." Dylan's apartment was a sanctuary of controlled chaos. Exposed brick walls lined with framed prints of misty forests and urban grit. A king-sized bed shoved against the window overlooking the Space Needle's distant glow, and a kitchenette cluttered with takeout containers from that one Thai place on Pike Street. He'd built this life post-Evan like a dam against a flood. Successful, solitary, out and proud in a city that embraced rainbow flags like they were Starbucks lattes. But now, with Evan here, the dam cracked, memories seeping through like the rain through the eaves. "Sit," Dylan said finally, gesturing to the worn leather couch that had seen more Netflix binges than actual company. He shrugged off his jacket, revealing the tattoo on his forearm. A compass rose inked in faded blue, the needle pointing eternally north. Evan's eyes flicked to it, and something raw flashed across his face. "He knows," Dylan thought. "Of course he does. It's the one thing I kept of US." Evan sank onto the couch, elbows on knees, fingers steepled like he was praying for absolution. "I didn't come to fight, Dill. Not at first. But then I saw your face on that stage talking about hidden loves like it was some abstract bullshit, and I thought, that's us. That's the scar you left." He pulled a manila envelope from his coat pocket, slapping it onto the coffee table with a thud that scattered coasters. "Read it. Then tell me why you ghosted me after everything." Dylan's pulse thundered as he eyed the envelope, its edges frayed like it had been carried across state lines. He knew what was inside without opening it. Letters, maybe, or clippings from the Evergreen Echo, their small-town Washington paper that had splashed their scandal across the front page like tabloid fodder. But he cracked it open anyway, fingers trembling, and pulled out a stack of yellowed newsprint and Polaroids. The top article screamed, "Local teens in altercation. Football star hospitalized." Below it, a photo of Evan, bandaged and bruised, staring hollow-eyed at the camera. "You kept this." Dylan's voice was a rasp, the hook of the past reeling him under. Evan leaned back, arms crossed. "Kept it? It's the only proof I have that we were real. That night at prom, hiding in the janitor's closet because your dad would have disowned you. My coach would have benched me for life. We laughed about it then, said we'd come out guns blazing after graduation. But you just left. A note on my windshield, It's better this way. Don't follow. No goodbye, no fight. Just gone. Dylan sank into the armchair opposite, the envelope clutched like a grenade. The rain pattered against the window, a relentless drumbeat sinking with the ache in his chest. He remembered that night vividly. The thump of bass from the gym, the taste of stolen whiskey on Evan's lips, the way their bodies fit like puzzle pieces in the dim glow of a single bare bulb. They'd been kings of their hidden empire, Dylan, the brooding artist kid with a sketchbook full of Evan's secret smiles. Evan, the golden boy quarterback whose touchdowns masked a tenderness only Dylan knew. But dawn had brought the wolves. A teammate had seen them slip away, whispers turning to shouts in the parking lot. Fists flew, Evan taking the brunt to shield Dylan, and by morning the town was ablaze with rumors. Dylan's father, a stern ex-Marine turned auto shop owner, had locked eyes with him over breakfast and said, "Boys like that don't last. Clean it up, son." And Dylan had. Oh God, had he. "I didn't ghost you," Dylan lied, the words sticking like tar. "I protected us. You were headed for WSU on scholarship. I was scraping by at community college. If I'd stayed, they'd have torn you apart. The team, your folks. Hell, the whole damn county." Evan's eyes narrowed, storm clouds gathering. "Protected us? You mean protected yourself?" "I waited, Dill. 6 months, calling your house till your mom hung up on me. Then I drove to Seattle, found your shitty studio apartment, but you'd already split for Portland. By the time I tracked you there, you'd changed your number. You built a life without me, while he trailed off, jaw clenching. While I drowned." The silence stretched, thick as the fog rolling in from Elliott Bay. Dylan wanted to reach across the table, trace the line of Evan's jaw like he used to, but the years had carved canyons between them. Instead, he stood, crossing to the kitchenette for 2 mismatched mugs and a bottle of bourbon. Evan's favorite, the one with the smoky finish that tasted like forbidden bonfires. "Drink," Dylan said, handing over a pour. Their fingers brushed, electric as a live wire, and for a split second, the room shrank to just that touch. Evan's gaze softened, the fighter yielding to the lover buried beneath. "To what?" Evan murmured, clinking glasses. "Old wounds." "To answers," Dylan replied, but as the liquor burned down his throat, he knew the truth. Some answers would only bleed them drier. The night unraveled in fits and starts, bourbon loosening tongues long silenced. Evan spoke first, his voice a low rumble over the storm's symphony. He'd gone to WSU, all right, played ball like a demon possessed, channeling heartbreak into spiral passes that won games but lost him sleep. "Coach called me his secret weapon," Evan said with a wry twist. If only he knew the real secret. The scholarship fizzled after a knee injury senior year, courtesy of a blindside hit that felt like karma's boot. Rehab led to bartending gigs in Pullman, then a slow drift to Tacoma, where he flipped houses for a living, practical, steady, the anti-Dylan. "But I never stopped looking for you," Evan admitted, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "Your photos started popping up online, those raw, black and white shots of pride marches, kids coming out in small towns. I bookmarked every one. Thought maybe you'd mention me or us in some artist's bio. But nada. Like I was your Van Gogh ear, cut off and forgotten." Dylan winced, the metaphor landing like a sucker punch. He'd poured their story into his lens instead. The curve of a young man's neck echoing Evan's, the defiant tilt of a chin mirroring that prom night kiss. But naming it, that would have summoned the ghosts. "I couldn't," he said softly. "Every time I tried, I'd see my dad's face, or yours in that hospital bed, tubes snaking out like accusations." Evan set his glass down, leaning forward. "Show me the tattoo up close." It wasn't a request. Dylan rolled up his sleeve, exposing the compass. North forever fixed, south a swirl of waves crashing into oblivion. Evan's fingers ghosted over it, calloused from hammer swings and heartbreak hauls. "You got this in Portland, right? After you left." "Yeah. First real paycheck from a gallery show." Dylan's skin prickled under the touch, memories flooding. Lazy Sundays in Evan's basement, sketching while Evan dozed, football jersey rumpled and inviting. Evan's thumb traced the needle's point. North. That's me. Huh? The one you couldn't let go. Dylan swallowed hard. Always. The admission hung there, vulnerable as the exposed negative. Evan pulled back, but not before Dylan caught the tremor in his hand. Then why, Dill? Why run? Because I loved you too much to watch you burn. The words escaped before he could cage them, raw and ragged. Outside, lightning cracked, illuminating Evan's face in stark relief. Older, harder, but still achingly beautiful. They talked until the bottle emptied, the rain easing to a patter. Evan crashed on the couch, too exhausted for the drive back to Tacoma, and Dylan lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling's water stains like a Rorschach of regrets. Dawn crept in gray and unforgiving, and with it, the envelope's contents gnawing at him. There was more in there. Letters from Evan, postmarked over the years, please turning to recriminations. Why did you leave? I saw you on TV. Marry me instead of that ghost. By morning, over black coffee in chipped mugs, Dylan broached it. You said the past returns demanding answers. What's the question? Evan? Really? Evan's eyes, shadowed from lack of sleep, met his steadily. Did you ever love me enough to fight for us? Or was it always easier to hide? The words landed like a fumble in the end zone, and Dylan had no play left. I thought I was fighting. By letting go. Evan nodded, slow as a verdict. Maybe it's time to try again. But not here, not in this city of ghosts. Come with me tomorrow. Back to Evergreen. Face it together. Dylan's gut twisted. Evergreen, Washington. The sleepy timber town where they'd bloomed and withered. Where the high school football field still bore the echoes of their cheers and jeers. Returning meant dredging the riverbed, unearthing bones he'd long buried. But as Evan stood, shrugging into his coat, the pull was magnetic, inexorable. All right, Dylan said, the hook sinking deeper. But if we're doing this, no more hiding. Full disclosure. Evan's smile was tentative, a crack of sunlight through clouds. Deal. Pick you up at noon. As the door clicked shut, Dylan crossed to the window, watching Evan's taillights fade into the mist. The Space Needle loomed like a question mark, and for the first time in years, he felt the compass on his arm itch, not with pain but possibility. The drive east from Seattle was a slow unraveling of the present. Highways giving way to winding two lanes flanked by evergreens that whispered secrets to the wind. Dylan gripped the wheel of his rented Subaru. Evan's truck was in the shop, another casualty of his handyman's hustle. While classic Springsteen crooned low from the speakers, thunder rode a soundtrack to their unspoken truce. Evan slouched in the passenger seat, window cracked to let in the crisp, pine-scented air, his knee bouncing a rhythm that betrayed the calm he projected. You still drive like you're evading cops, Evan teased, glancing sideways. His profile was etched against the passing blur of Douglas firs, jaw set but eyes softer than last night. Dylan chuckled, a rusty sound. Old habits. Remember that time we joyrode to the lake in your dad's F-150? Thought we'd make it to Canada before he noticed. Evan's grin flashed, quick as a shooting star. We did, till the gas gauge lied. Slept under the stars by Lake Chelan, your head on my chest, talking about New York. You'd shoot for the New Yorker, I'd coach Pee Wee League. Domestic as hell. The memory stung sweet, Dylan's fingers tightening on the wheel. That night had been their pinnacle. Two 17-year-olds tangled in a sleeping bag, bodies warm against the chill, dreams spilling out like fireflies. No town, no team, just them. We were idiots, he said, voice thick. Optimistic idiots. Best kind. Evan reached over, squeezing Dylan's thigh, a casual touch that ignited like dry tinder. Dylan shot him a look, heat rising, but Evan just winked. Eyes on the road, Hargrove. We've got unfinished business in Evergreen first. The town crept up unannounced. A cluster of clapboard houses and mom-and-pop diners huddled against the Cascades' shadow. Main Street hadn't changed much. The Rexall drugstore with its faded awning. The VFW hall where Dylan's dad still held court over Bud Lights. The high school looming at the edge like a stern sentinel. Evergreen High, home of the Fighting Loggers, where Friday nights under the lights had been religion, and Dylan and Evan its heretics. Evan directed him to the old football field parking lot, now cracked and weed-choked, the bleachers sagging like weary elders. They stepped out into the chill, boots crunching gravel, the goalposts stark against a sky bruised purple with impending dusk. A lone chain-link fence rattled in the breeze, and beyond it, the field where Evan had once slung passes like poetry, Dylan cheering from the shadows, sketchpad in lap. "Here," Evan said, leading them to the 50-yard line, where a weathered plaque commemorated the '05 state championship, the year before them. He knelt, tracing the engraved names, his voice low. "This is where it started. Remember? You snuck in after practice, sat on the turf drawing me while I ran drills. Coach thought you were scouting the other team." Dylan crouched beside him, the damp grass soaking through his jeans. "I was scouting you, that spiral you threw, pure grace. I filled 3 pages that night." Evan's hand found his, intertwining fingers in the grass like roots seeking soil. "And I fumbled on purpose sometimes, just to buy time talking to you. Hey, artist boy, what's that one mean? God, I was gone for you from the jump." The confession pulled Dylan under waves of what-if crashing. He leaned in, forehead to Evan's, breaths mingling. First kiss was here too. Behind the scoreboard, after that loss to Centralia. You tasted like Gatorade and victory anyway. Evan's free hand cupped Dylan's neck, thumb stroking the pulse point. "Tasted like home." Their lips met then. Tentative at first, a question posed in the fading light, then deepening, hungry, 12 years of famine devouring the feast. Dylan's world narrowed to Evan's mouth, the scrape of stubble, the low groan that vibrated through them both. It was messy, imperfect, alive. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, Evan's eyes glassy. "We can't start here. Not yet. The answer's first." Dylan nodded, reluctant, the fire banked but smoldering. They rose, hands lingering until necessity pulled them apart, and headed to Evan's old family home. A modest rancher on Elm Street, now his sister's rental after their parents moved to Arizona. But it wasn't nostalgia that drew them. It was the box in the attic, the one Evan had unearthed before this mad quest. Inside, the house smelled of lemon polish and faint lavender, his mom's touch lingering. They climbed creaky stairs to the attic, dust motes dancing in the flashlight beam. And there it was, a cardboard tomb labeled Evan's HS stuff in Sharpie. Evan sliced it open with a pocket knife, revealing trophies tarnished with time, yearbooks dog-eared, and at the bottom, a lockbox the size of a Bible. "Open it," Evan said, handing Dylan the key. A tiny silver thing on a chain around his neck. Inside, letters bound with twine, a mixtape labeled for Dill, "Drive Safe," and a single earring Dylan's, lost in passion's haste. But the kicker was the journal, leather-bound, Evan's scrawl filling pages with fevered entries. October 12th. D kissed me in the rain. World ends tomorrow? Worth it. March 3rd. Dad asked about that Hargrove kid. Lied through teeth. Hate this cage. Dylan read aloud, voice cracking on the rawness. You chronicled us. Every stolen moment. Couldn't let it fade? Evan murmured. Even when you did. Guilt twisted like barbed wire. I didn't fade you. I hid to survive. He flipped pages, landing on the entry post-prom. Fight was bad. Ribs cracked, but D's safe. He'd run if I told. Love him enough to let him? The attic air thickened, accusations unspoken. Dylan closed the journal, setting it aside. That night, I blamed myself. You took the hits for me, and I repaid you by bailing. Evan paced the narrow space, shadows playing across his face. You think I wanted your pity? I wanted you fists fall out and all. But you chose silence. And it broke me. The words ignited the first real spark of conflict. Old wounds festering anew. Dylan stood, chest heaving. Silence? I wrote that note because your coach cornered me. Said he'd tank your scholarship if we didn't sort it. My dad threatened to ship me to military school. We were kids, Evan. Pawns in their game. Evan whirled, eyes blazing. Pawns who could have run. Together. Instead, you knighted yourself martyr and left me checkmated. The argument escalated, voices rising to pierce the attic's hush. Accusations flying like errant passes. Dylan's fear as cowardice. Evan's persistence as obsession. A shoved shoulder turned to grappling, bodies colliding in a tangle of fury and forgiveness, tumbling onto a forgotten quilt amid the boxes. Punches dissolved into clutches, anger alchemizing to desperation. Lips crashing in a kiss that tasted of salt and surrender. They didn't make love there. Not fully, not yet. But the heat was a promise. Hands roaming under shirts, breaths ragged against necks. "I'm sorry," Dylan gasped, Evan's weight pinning him, grounding him, for running, for hiding. Evan's forehead dropped to Dylan's shoulder, a shudder running through him. "Me too. For chasing ghosts." They disentangled slowly, spent and sated in the afterglow of almost, descending to the kitchen for water and quiet. Moonlight slanted through lace curtains, casting patterns like lace on their skin. Evan pulled Dylan onto the sagging couch, arms wrapping possessive, and they talked, not of blame but beginnings. "Tell me about Seattle," Evan prompted, fingers tracing lazy circles on Dylan's back. "The real you, not the Instagram version," Dylan exhaled, spilling. "The gallery shows that paid rent but not peace. The one-night stands that echoed hollow. The pride floats where he'd march alone, scanning crowds for a blonde head that never appeared. I came out loud, panels, protests. But inside, still that scared kid in the closet." Evan hummed understanding, sharing his own fragments. The Tacoma flings that fizzled. The house flips funding therapy he bailed on. The quiet nights staring at Dylan's photos like lifelines. "I dated a guy last year, nice, stable. But he'd kiss me, and I'd taste you instead. Ended it clean. But damn, it hurt." Vulnerability bridged them, laughter punctuating the ache. Reminiscing the time they'd TP'd the rival coach's house, or Evan's botched attempt at Dylan's favorite lasagna. By midnight, exhaustion claimed them, curled together on the couch. Evan's heartbeat a steady drum under Dylan's ear. But dawn brought the specter. A knock at the door, sharp as judgment. Evan stirred, groaning, while Dylan peered through the peephole. Mrs. Hargrove, Dylan's mom, bouquet in hand, her silver-streaked hair unmistakable. "Evan? That you?" she called, voice muffled but warm. Panic flickered, old instincts dying hard, but Evan squeezed Dylan's hand. "Together." Dylan nodded, unlocking the door. His mom stood there, eyes widening at the tableau. Two men rumpled and radiant, history etched in their gaze. "Well," she said, thrusting lilies forward. "If you're airing skeletons, might as well have flowers. Coffee's on me. Diner in 10. As she bustled off, Dylan laughed, tension uncoiling. She always knew, hated the hiding more than the loving. Evan pulled him close, a vow in the press of lips. No more hiding. But Evergreen had one last card to play, and it waited at the diner, in the form of a face from the past. Tommy Reyes, their old tormentor, now a deputy with a badge and a grudge. The Evergreen Diner was a time capsule of chrome and vinyl, formica counters scarred by decades of coffee rings and heartbreak hashes. The bell above the door jangled like a warning as Dylan and Evan slid into a corner booth, the red Naugahyde creaking under them. Dylan's mom, Lydia to friends, Ma in quieter moments, had beaten them there, nursing a mug of joe and flipping through the local paper with practiced nonchalance. But her eyes, sharp as a shutter click, missed nothing. "Boys," she greeted, sliding 2 menus across. "Pancakes on me. And Evan, damn, you filled out. Pass the quarterback life suit you." Evan flushed, ducking his head with that boyish grin Dylan had sketched 100 times. "Ma'am, good to see you." "Yeah, till it didn't. You look timeless." Lydia waved it off, but her smile crinkled the corners of her eyes. "Flattery gets you extra bacon. Now, spill what brings you 2 relics back to this burg. Not my famous hash browns, I hope." Dylan exchanged a glance with Evan, the booth suddenly intimate as a confessional. "Ghost hunting, Ma." the friendly kind. He nodded to the envelope peeking from Evan's jacket pocket, the one with the articles, the unanswered whys. She arched a brow, maternal radar pinging. About time. Your father. She trailed off as Millie, the waitress with the beehive and no-nonsense drawl, ambled over for orders. 2 stacks, sides of sausage, and keep the coffee coming. Lydia rattled off, then leaned in. He knows, about you too. Always did. Grunted something about boys being boys and changed the oil on that old Taurus instead of talking. Classic Hargrove. The admission landed soft, a bomb on old abrasions. Dylan had spent years resenting his dad's silence, interpreting stoicism as shame. But hearing it now, through Lydia's wry lens, it reframed. Not rejection, but repression. The generational curse of men who loved hard but spoke soft. Evan cleared his throat, unfolding the envelope. We came for this. Closure, maybe, or a reckoning. Lydia scanned the clippings, her expression tightening at the prom night headline. Lord, that rag sensationalized everything. Tommy Reyes started the brawl, jealous punk, always sniffing for weakness. But you two, you were the real story. Hiding pearls in pigpens. Before Dylan could respond, the bell jingled again, and in strode Tommy Reyes himself. Broader now, gut straining his khaki uniform, badge glinting like a cheap metal. He paused at the counter, ordering a bear claw with the authority of small-town royalty. But his gaze snagged on their booth like a hook in flesh. Hargrove, he drawled, sauntering over, coffee in hand, and quarterback. Hell of a reunion. Town talk or trouble brewing. Evan stiffened, but Dylan felt the old fire kindle. Artistic ire, the kind that fueled manifestos. Just breakfast, Tommy. No autographs. Tommy's laugh was a bark, settling uninvited at the booth's end. Touchy. Heard you fancy boys made good out west. Photos, speeches, real progressive. Me? Keeping the peace here, where folks remember the score. His eyes flicked to Evan, lingering mean. You still sore about that hit? Or just about him ditching you? The air crackled, diner din fading to a hum. Lydia's fork clattered, but Evan leaned forward, voice steel-wrapped velvet. Scores settled, Reyes. I won the game and the heart. What's your excuse for still swinging? Tommy's jowls reddened, badge hand twitching. Watch it, Coulter. Some things don't change, town's got rules. And outsiders stirring mud? That's my beat. Dylan slid a hand under the table, gripping Evan's knee, anchor and spark. We're not stirring, Tommy. We're remembering. You want to play cop? Fine. But harass us. And my TEDx crowd hears about Evergreen's finest. The standoff teetered, Millie's arrival with platters a timely truce. Tommy shoved back, muttering freaks under his breath, but the venom lacked bite. Time had blunted his blade, or maybe fear of viral backlash had. As he slunk away, Lydia exhaled. That boy's poison never dilutes. But you two, antidote material. Over pancakes drowned in syrup. Evan's with extra blueberries, Dylan's plain as penance. They dissected the encounter, laughter edging out the tension. He always was a bully with a boner for attention, Evan said, spearing sausage. Remember sophomore year? Locked us in the locker room, thinking it'd toughen us up. We just made out till the janitor came. Dylan snorted, syrup-sticky fingers brushing Evan's. Best detention ever. Lydia rolled her eyes, but affection warmed her. Y'all were obvious as neon. Now, if you're done with diner drama, head to the library. Archivist there, old Miss Harrow, keeps the microfilm. Might find more than headlines. They heeded her, bellies full and resolve firmer, crossing to the Carnegie-era library with its stone lions and hushed sanctity. Miss Harrow, a bird-like woman in pearls, unearthed reels of the Echo from '07 to '08. Her glasses perched like a judge's gavel. Prom scandal, she murmured, threading the machine. Stirred the pot, that one. Town divided, progressives versus the pew jumpers. The grainy images flickered, grainy shots of the dance. Evan's tux crisp, Dylan's thrift store suit rumpled. Then the aftermath, ambulances wailing, parents huddled. But buried in society pages was gold. A letter to the editor, anonymous. To the loggers who love in shadows, shine on. Your light outlasts the storm. A friend. Evan's breath hitched. Your mom. Dylan shook his head, awed. No. Mine was subtler. This was Coach Ellis. The revelation hit like a blindside. Ellis. The gruff giant who'd barked plays but slipped Evan protein bars when money was tight. Who'd pulled Dylan aside post-scandal. Hearts don't fumble easy, kid. Guard yours. Outed in death. 5 years back. With a quiet obituary noting his lifelong commitment to the team and to love. Tears pricked Evan's eyes, unashamed. He knew, and covered for us. Miss Harrow nodded, patting his hand. Many did. Towns got layers like old bark. They left the library lighter, hands linked openly on the sidewalk. Defiance in daylight. Evergreens stirred around them. Kids on bikes, log trucks rumbling. A rainbow flag fluttering defiantly from the hardware store. Progress, piecemeal. But closure's edge sharpened at the cemetery, Evan's idea. A pilgrimage to the plot where dreams had died. The gates creaked like old bones. Gravel paths winding past headstones etched with lumberjack lore. They paused at Ellis's marker, simple granite. Loyal to the end. Evan laid a football, deflated and dated, whispering thanks. Then, deeper in under a weeping willow, the Hargrove family stone, Dylan's grandparents' stern sentinels. Dad's not here yet, Dylan said, kneeling. But he visits. Leaves tools, wrenches like apologies. Evan crouched beside, arm around shoulders. Call him. Tonight. Tell him. Dylan's throat bobbed. Yeah. The sun dipped, painting the stones gold, and they lingered, sharing silence thick with us. But as shadows lengthened, a figure approached. Tommy again, cruiser idling at the gate, his silhouette ominous. Evening, lovebirds, he called, voice oily. Heard you been digging. Careful. Some dirt's toxic. Evan rose, blocking Dylan instinctively. What do you want, Reyes? Badge don't make you king. Tommy stepped closer, breath sour with chew. Want? Justice. That night you two started it, prancing like show ponies. Ruined the team, the town. My boys on JV now. Coach preaches inclusivity. Bullshit. The conflict crested, venom spilling. Tommy's rants of traditional values. Evan's retorts of evolved manhood. Dylan's pleas for peace dissolving into shouts. Fists clenched, history repeating, until a patrol car horn blared from the road. Back up for the bully turned beleaguered. Tommy backed off, spitting. This ain't over. Evergreen remembers. As he retreated, Evan pulled Dylan close, hearts hammering in sync. He's scared. Of us. Of change. Dylan nodded, but fear lingered. A shadow on the sunset. They drove to Lydia's for dinner, pot roast and pie, family mending over Merlot. Dad called midway, voice gruff on speaker. Heard Evan's back. Good man. Owe him a beer and an apology. Tears flowed free then, catharsis in the kitchen glow. But as night fell, Evan's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown. Stay away from my dad. Or else. Jr. Tommy's son. The past clawing back. Sleep came fitful that night in Lydia's guest room. The double bed a battlefield of tangled sheets and half-remembered touches. Dylan woke to Evan's arms slung heavy across his waist, breath warm against his neck. The dawn filtering through gingham curtains like a hesitant apology. Evergreen's roosters crowed distant. A rural reveille that pulled them from the cocoon toward confrontation's maw. Jr. Evan muttered over coffee, scrolling the text history. Tommy's kid, 19 now, plays cornerback. Probably heard Daddy's sob story and thinks we're the villains. Dylan buttered toast, jaw tight. We ignore it. Or block. This trip's about us, not their grudge. But Evan's eyes darkened, quarterback resolve hardening. No, we face it, like everything else. Meet him at the field neutral ground. End this cycle. Lydia, eavesdropping from the sink, nodded approval. Smart. But take my pepper spray. Boys and their toys. They arrived at the high school lot mid-morning. mist clinging to the turf like unresolved fog. JR waited by the bleachers. Lanky, with his father's square jaw but eyes wide with uncertainty, not malice. He wore a logger hoodie, hands shoved in pockets, shifting like a freshman at tryouts. "You Reyes?" Evan called, striding forward, Dylan a step behind. JR nodded, chin lifting defiant. "Yeah. Dad says you wrecked everything back then. Team fell apart after. You know." Evan stopped 10 yards out, hands open, non-threat. "Wrecked? Nah. We loved, kid. Quiet like, till it spilled. Your dad swung first. We just survived." JR's gaze darted, conflict etching his brow. "He tells it different. Says you corrupted stuff. Made it weird." Dylan's temper flared, but Evan's hand on his arm steadied. "Weird? Love's not weird, hiding it is. Ask your teammates. Hell, ask Coach Ramirez. He's got stories of guys like us on the roster now. Winning even." The boy flushed, scuffing turf. "Coach? He pulled me aside yesterday. Said Dad's twisting history. That you two were stand-up. Evan, best arm he ever coached. Dylan, the one who captured the soul of it all in photos." Revelation rippled, JR's shoulders slumping. Dad's pissed. Lost his deputy gig last month. Diversity hire backlash. Blames folks like you." Evan stepped closer, voice gentle. "Blame's a heavy load, JR. Lighten it. Tell him the truth. World's bigger than one playbook. And love? It's the ultimate Hail Mary." JR met their eyes then, raw and reaching. You'll still? After all." Dylan slipped his hand into Evan's, the link a lifeline. "Trying. Messy, but real." The kid nodded, a ghost of a smile. "Cool. Sorry for the text. Won't happen again." He turned, jogging off but paused. "Hey, team's got a queer alliance now. Meets Thursdays. Dad hates it, but maybe I'll check it out." As he vanished, Evan exhaled, pulling Dylan into a fierce hug. One convert. Progress. But triumph soured en route to the next stop. The auto shop, Dylan's inheritance unspoken. His dad, Jack Hargrove, grease monkey philosopher, waited in the bay, wrench in hand, flannel shirt rolled to elbows revealing faded marine ink. The air hummed with oil and ozone, classic rock twanging from a transistor radio. "Son?" Jack grunted, wiping hands on rag before engulfing Dylan in a bear hug that smelled of motor oil and unspoken pride. Then to Evan, "Coulter, owe you that beer, and more, for keeping him safe when I couldn't." Evan clasped his forearm, man to man. "Water under the bridge, sir. Just glad we're all above it." Jack's laugh rumbled, leading them to the office. A cluttered shrine of invoices and engine parts. Above? Hell, I was buried in it. Knew you boys were sweet on each other since junior year. Saw the looks at games. Thought it'd pass. Like a phase. He poured 3 long necks from a mini fridge, clinking bottles. But it didn't. And I failed you. That morning after prom? Should have hugged you, not lectured. Dylan's throat closed, beer forgotten. "Dad." Jack's eyes, crinkled with years, met his. "Pride's a bitch to swallow when you're raised on tough it out. But seeing you shine out west, photos in papers, talking truth, made me reckon. Told the VFW last month. My boy's braver than any grunt I served with." The absolution washed over Dylan like rain on parched earth, tears blurring the bays. Evan squeezed his shoulder, silent sentinel. "Means the world, Mr. H. From both of us." Jack nodded, gruff veil cracking. "Call me Jack. And Evan, stay for dinner. Lydia's making meatloaf. No hiding at my table." They lingered hours, shop talk turning personal. Jack's Vietnam ghosts, Evan's injury regrets, Dylan's lens as therapy. By dusk, bonds reforged, they parted with promises. Monthly calls, a Hargrove Coulter barbecue come summer. But the road back to Seattle wasn't empty. Evan's phone rang midway, Tacoma area code. He answered on speaker, voice wary, "Coulter." A woman's voice, clipped and cool. "Evan?" To Sarah. From the flip on Pacific? Your ex, Mark? He saw your post. The one with Dylan's name. Said you're rekindling old flames. Came by raging, broke a window. Cops hauled him, but be careful. Evan's face drained, knuckles white. Mark? That stable guy you mentioned. Dylan merged lanes, heart sinking. The one you tasted me in? Evan nodded, guilt etching. Yeah. Thought it was over clean. Guess not. The betrayal. Unintentional. Ancient. Stirred Dylan's insecurities. Old doubts whispering. Not over you? Or not over the drama? They drove in taut silence. Springsteen swapped for static YNPR. The cascades blurring past like judgment. Back in Dylan's apartment, unpacking ghosts, the dam broke. You loved him? Dylan asked, unzipping duffels with undue force. Evan paused, shirt half off. Once, thought I could. But no, it was always shadow play. You're the light. The words soothed, but friction lingered. They argued then, not fists but facts. Evan's secrecy about Mark, Dylan's flinching at commitment. I'm scared, Dylan admitted, pacing the loft, of losing you again. To time, to town, to some ex's meltdown. Evan closed the gap, hands framing Dylan's face. Then don't. Marry the mess with me. The proposal hung, ringless but real, Evan's eyes pleading. Dylan kissed him fierce, yes trembling on lips, but doubt's seeds sprouted. Mark's rage echoed Tommy's, a pattern of peril chasing their love. Night deepened, bodies entwining in reclamation. Slow, sacred, reclaiming lost years in gasps and grips. But as Evan slept, Dylan stared at the ceiling, phone buzzing. An email from his gallery. Portfolio review. Include personal narrative? Past loves add depth. Depth or danger? The past demanded answers, but what if it refused peace? The week blurred into a fevered dream of reconnection. Mornings tangled in sheets, Evan's laughter echoing off brick as Dylan snapped candids. Him hammering nails into coma, shirtless and sweat glistened. Evenings at dive bars, hands linked under tables, toasting to us, unhidden. Seattle embraced them, rainbow crosswalks a welcome mat. But the undercurrent pulled. Mark's shadow, Tommy's echo. The world's whisper that queer love was still a battlefield. It crested Friday, Dylan's gallery show, Shadows and Revelations. A collection born of Evergreen's excavation. The space hummed, loft ceilings strung with Edison bulbs, walls alive with prints. Misty fields evoking their first kiss, fractured mirrors reflecting hidden selves. A central triptych of Evan. Youthful quarterback, scarred survivor, present-day anchor. Invite only, but word spread. By 8, the crowd swelled with artsy types, collectors in bespoke blazers, a smattering of Seattle's queer elite. Dylan circulated, champagne flute in hand, anecdotes flowing easy. This one's from high school, he told a curator, nodding to the goalpost silhouette. Love under lights, literally. Laughter rippled, but his eyes sought Evan, who manned the bar in rolled sleeves, charming donors with tales of the muse who got away and came back. Pride swelled, but so did peril. Midway, a disturbance at the door. Mark, disheveled in a rumpled Oxford, eyes wild with whiskey and woe. Evan, he bellowed, shoving past security. A freelance photographer who'd mistaken drama for drama. You parade this ghost while I pick shards? After us. The room hushed, murmurs like static. Evan vaulted the bar, Dylan converging. Hearts synced in siege. Mark, easy. Evan soothed, hands raised. It's done. Go home. But Mark lunged, grief twisting to grapple, toppling a pedestal, glass shattering like trust. Chaos erupted. Gasps, shoves, Dylan's lens instinct kicking in. Phone raised to document the unravel. Security hauled Mark out, sirens wailing distant, but the damage etched. Guests whispering toxic X, high school baggage. In the aftermath, cleanup crew sweeping shards. Evan pulled Dylan to the back office, door slamming. I'm sorry, he rasped, forehead to wall. Mark was placeholder, safe. But you're the risk I crave. Dylan cupped his face, thumbs tracing cheekbones. And the fight? That's us messy, but mine. He kissed him then, amid the detritus, a vow in velocity. Love not despite the storm, but through it. Word spread overnight. Viral clips of the queer artist showdown. But spun positive. Resilience, romance reclaimed. Tommy texted JR a grudging herd about the dust-up. Proud? Nah, but fair play. Baby steps. 2 weeks later, atop Hurricane Ridge, Olympic Peninsula spine, they hiked to the overlook. Windswept peaks dropping to endless blue, evergreens bowing to the vast. Evan unpacked a picnic. PB&J, their high school staple. A thermos of bourbon spiked cider, and a velvet box, small and seismic. Dylan Hargrove, he said, kneeling on the rocky outcrop, ring glinting. A simple band, silver with etched compass points. We hid once, ran once, no more. Marry me, fight with me, love with me, live with me. All in. Tears blurred the vista. Dylan's yes a whisper swallowed by wind, then roared in embrace. They made love there, under a quilt against the chill. Tender, triumphant, bodies a map of scars and stars. Months spun. Wedding small, evergreen chapel with Jack walking Dylan. Lydia dabbing eyes, JR as usher. Dad's coming around, slow. Vows exchanged. In shadows and light, I choose you. Honeymoon in the San Juans. Kayaking coves. Nights in cedar cabins. Whispers of futures. Adoption dreams. Gallery expansions. A life unapologetic. But humanity's hue tempered the happily. Mark in rehab, letters of amends. Tommy at the reception, toast awkward but earnest. To second halves, no fairy tale but folk song, raw, resonant, real. Years on, Dylan's book Hidden Plays top charts. Evan coaching youth league with a rainbow whistle. They parented twins, adopted firecrackers, one a budding artist, the other a quarterback with heart. Evenings, on their Capitol Hill porch, swings creaking, they'd recount the hook. That rainy night, the envelope, the answers that birthed beginnings. Past returns, Evan would murmur, hand in Dylan's. But we answer with love. And in the quiet, under Seattle's neon-veiled stars, they'd kiss, eternal as the sounds tied. No more hiding, only home.